we are going to build a chatbot application using MERN Stack, and that is MongoDB, Express, React, and Node.js using OpenAI. And the purpose for this bot is that it can answer to our questions, and one good thing is that it can remember the context of our chat. So if I say that, for example, what can you do? And if I want to do some follow-up questions, for example, can you teach me Node.js? And I got the feedback. And if I say that, what is Node.js? I can do some follow-up questions to summarize this in 20 words. As you can see, it remembers the context of my chat. And we can also issue the same command at the backend using Postman. So if I say that, what is Node.js? I got the result, and I can go ahead to give me the keywords in this. As you can see, it has given me the keywords in the content. Alright, so this is what we are going to build. And like I said that, we are going to use Node.js, React, Express, and MongoDB. But for this one, we are going to ignore MongoDB by relying on Node.js, Express, and React. And we are going to use Vite to create our React application. And before continuing, make sure to have an account with OpenAI. So if you go to OpenAI Playground, this is the first search result. Click on that. Or better still, you can go to platform.openai.com/playground. In case you don't have an account, make sure to create one. It is free of charge. The first step is that as soon as you create an account as a new user, OpenAI is going to give you some credit to start with. So if you click on the usage, as a new user, you're going to have some credit to begin with. My account is not a new account, so after I finish using it, unless I top up using my credit card. So make sure to have some credit to begin with. Alright, the next step is that make sure to have your own API keys. So click on the API keys. For me, I have some ongoing API keys. So I'm going to create one for this project by clicking on this. And here I'll provide a name, for example, chatbot. And you can name it whatever you want and then create secret key. And make sure to use your own API keys, because at the end, I will go ahead and then delete it. So I'll go ahead and then copy that. Back to my project. Here I have created a folder called MERN OpenAI Chatbot. And let's begin with the backend. So I'll have a folder for the backend as that. And then let me have one file called app.js. And then let me place the keys here. For the meantime, let's leave it as it is and let's continue. Next step is that let's read the documentation how we are going to use this. So click on that, and under the capabilities, we are going to use the text generation. So click on that. And the purpose for this model is that the model provides text output in response to their input. And we can use this model to build these applications like draft documents, write computer code, and answer questions about knowledge base and others. So this is what we are going to use. If you scroll down here, we have these models that we can use for text generations. So here, we're going to use what is called the Chat Completion API. And it says that this models takes a list of messages as input and return a model generated message as output. And this is the logic for that. For this logic, it can give us a feedback based on our input, but it cannot help us to achieve the way we want as our chatbot, unless we do some modifications to achieve that. But don't worry, I'll show you how we are going to do that. So here, make sure to copy the entire code here and then back to our application, paste that. This is a logic for getting feedback from the model. Don't worry, I will show you how it's going to work. Next step is that unless we get authenticated, so back to the documentation, and then under the getting started, click on the overview, or better still, click on the quick start. So here, let's scroll down, and then we're going to use Node.js, but not Python. So click on Node.js. First step is that make sure to have Node.js being installed. And from there, we are going to install the Node.js library as OpenAI. So back to our application, we are going to initialize our project as npm. So make sure to open the right folder as that and make use of npm init -- yes to have the default configurations, and we have the package.json file. So next step is that let's install Express as our server, and then OpenAI, hit enter. Let's continue to authenticate. So next step is that I will say authenticate with our API keys. To be able to authenticate, we are going to create instance of OpenAI as you see over here. And then inside, we're going to pass in these configurations by saying API key. And then we're going to provide our API key as that. But since this one is more sensitive, let's place it inside an environment variable. So back to my project, I'm going to create one file called .env, and I will say OpenAI secret. So this means that we have to install a package called .env. And this package is going to help us to be able to access the variables or the values inside this .env file. So back to the project now, I can remove this, and we're going to require the .env file as import. And for this, I'm using ES module than common.js. So it means that we have to modify the package.json file. So here, provide type, and then we're going to use the module, and that is the ESS module. All right. So here on the .env, we're going to use what is called config. So now I can remove this and provide process.env dot, and then replace with that. So now I have authenticated using my API key. Perfect. So now if you run this application, let's try before I explain what is going on over here as that. Now to run this application, I'm going to use Node and the name of the file as app.js. As you can see, we got the feedback from our model or OpenAI. So here we are using the instance of OpenAI, which is this. On that, we have these methods as chat.completions.create. And here we're going to provide the messages, which is this. And this message is between the system, and that is the AI, and the user. Here we have a role as the system, and that is the AI or the model. And the responsibility is that you are a helpful assistant. So here, the next role is going to be the user who is asking who won the World Series in 2020. So here, the role here is going to be the assistant and provide the response based on the user input. And here we are using GP3 table as our model. Like I said that you can use different models, but remember about the pricing and the tokens that you can get. For this project, we are going to use GP3 table. All right, and here we're going to get the result from the completion.choices and get the first index of the response. So for this one, unless we modify this to suit our need to have some endpoint where we can hit to get the response. So let's continue to modify this. So I'm going to remove everything from here. And now we're going to have our server. So here, let's have the port as const. Port is equal to process.env.port. In case you don't have it, then I'm going to use 8080 or 9090. And then down here, it's going to be the server as run the server. So to run the server, we are going to use a script, which is this, and that is node -- watch, and then the name of the file as app.js. With the current of Node.js, we have this one to work the same way as we use NodeMon. So with this one, you don't have to install NodeMon again. So for this, if I hit enter, now we have the server being running. If I make changes to my server, for example, this is going to restart the server for me. Perfect. So here, I'm going to write all the logics on this file. So here, I'm going to have the route here as that, which is app.post. And the endpoint here is going to be /ask. And then the callback function as async. Inside here, we're going to get what the user is providing as user message. For this one, to allow the model to remember the context of our chat unless we provide the previous message along with the new one. So here we have to push all the previous messages into a variable as an array. So here I'm going to say that update conversation history with the user's message, which is equal to array of objects, and then specify the row, and the value here is going to be our system as you saw. And then the content here, which is going to be you are a helpful assistant. So we are going to update this one upon every request from the user. So down here, we are going to update by taking the conversation history.push. And what are we pushing? We're going to push in an object with a row called user. This means that this is what the user is providing. And here I'm going to pass in the content, which is going to be the message from the user as user message. Alright, so now we can go ahead and talk to the model by providing try and catch. We're going to bring in the OpenAI.chat.completions, and then on that we have create as an object, and then specify the messages as the conversation history, and then the model here. And here we have these models, GPT-4, 3.5, and others. For us, we're going to use the 3.5 table, which is this. All right, now we are done with that. So after that, we are going to extract the response. And it goes like this, where I forgot to assign to a variable called completion, which is equal to await. And here I will say both response, which is equal to the completion dot choices, and take the first index, and then on that we have the message dot content. If you lock the completion, you're going to see these properties. And then lastly, we have to send the response as the both message, or both response instead. And in case something goes wrong, rest.status. And that is it. We are done. So the next step is that we have to use a middleware to pass the incoming JSON data as app.use. And on the Express, we have .json as a method. All right, so let's try out. The endpoint is 1990/ask, and here we're going to provide a message. Let me change this one to what can you do? As you can see, we got the result. And then if I say that, what is CSS? We got the response. I can ask to summarize in 10 words. And then we got the result, which means that our API is working. What has left is the front end. So here I'm going to create one folder called front end. Now I can close these guys. And for the front end, like I said, that we are going to use Vite to generate our React application. So click on the Get Started. Down here, copy the snippet, which says that npm create Vite at latest. So back to the terminal, right click, open in the integrated terminal, and then paste that and hit enter. Alright, it is asking me the project name. Since we have it already as front end, I'm going to use period or dot. And then hit enter. Select React and then JavaScript. And then here, let's make use of npm install to install all the dependencies. Alright, it is done. And for this, we are going to use a package called React Query. And the purpose for React Query is going to help us to manage server state or to make HTTP requests to our backend. And this one helps us to make our life easier. For example, if you are implementing pagination or loading, error handling, and others, this package is going to make our life much easier. In case you want to learn more about React Query, then you can check my course. Alright, so here, go to timestack.com/query, and here, click on the latest one. And then click on the read documentation. And then click on the installation, which is this. And this is how you're going to install React Query. So copy this one back to the terminal. Paste that, and that is it. So next step is that we are going to connect or wrap our application using this package. So back to the front end, and then inside the SRC index, and that is the main.jsx. This is where we are going to wrap our application using this package. We are going to import these packages as that, which is timestack/React Query. And what we want is called query client, and then the query client provider. Alright, so we're going to create instance of the query client as client or query client, which is equal to new query client as a function call. So we are going to wrap it as a provider. So in here, I will say query client provider, and then provide what is called client, and then pass in the query client, and that is it. And let's place our app inside. We are done with that. And apart from what I've just said about React Query, it also supports many features like caching, optimization, and others, but we are going to use in the minimal way. Alright, the next step is that how can we make the HTTP request to our backend? This is where use mutation comes in. For this, we are going to write all the logics in the app.js. So here, I'm going to remove everything from here. Or better still, I can create a component for it. So in the SRC component, and then the component name, I'm going to make use of chat.jsx. When using Vite, make sure to have an extension called JSX. So I'm going to scaffold the component as that. So here we are going to have a function to make the HTTP request. This is where use mutation comes in. And we're going to get it from the React query as use mutation, and the auto import is fine. Alright, so here the function is going to be send message API, and we're going to use Axios to make the HTTP request as Axios. All right, so let's continue. So in here, we're going to make use of response equal to await Axios. I have to require Axios as that. So Axios dot post, and the endpoint here is going to be this one, and then place it here as that. And here all what we need is to return what is called a promise as return res.data. For the error handling, the use mutation is going to do for us, so we don't have to worry about that. For example, loading and then error handling. That is one thing about React query. So in here, we're going to have some local state, and that is how to handle the form and how to determine either the AI is typing and display the conversation histories. So we're going to have one for the messages as message. And for this one, I want to provide some initial value or default value. As you can see for the final one, as soon as the application loads, we have, hello, how can I assist you today? This we're going to provide here as initial value inside the use state for the conversations as an object. And then provide a row, and the row here is going to be assistant. And then comma, the content. And the value is going to be, hello, how can I assist you today? And then we're going to have the mutation here as mutation logic. As const mutation is equal to use mutation, a function call, and then the object. Here we're going to specify these properties as mutation function, and we have the function here as send message API, which is this. And the second one is going to be mutation key. And this mutation key is going to be used behind the scene by the React query for optimizations as that. So here you can provide any key, and I will say here as query or chatbot. And then we're going to have a property called onSuccess, which means that in case the request was successful, we can handle some operations inside this callback function as that. So here as that, and then inside here we have access to the actual data, and that is a response from the API. And this is where we can update its typing and also update the conversation. So I will say set is typing, and then here we're gonna say that it is false. And then we have to update the conversation by using set conversations, and then we're gonna pass in a callback function as that. And here we are going to return an array. Remember, in the callback we have the previous conversation, and for the array we are going to spread the previous conversation, and we're gonna add the row as the assistant, and then the content as the data dot message, which means that what comes back from the API, we have it as data. On that we have the message property. All right, so we are done with the mutation. Next step is that we have to have the handle submit. In here we are going to trim the message. Remember, we have the message here. So in here, before sending, we are going to trim by saying that current message. And we're going to check in case the user is not providing the current message. Then we are going to alert by saying that please enter a message. And then we are going to return from this. Then we are going to set the conversation as we did before. So here I'm going to copy this one for setting the conversation as that. Here, instead of using assistant as a row, we are going to use as user. And the content here is going to be the current message. And then we are going to set is typing to true. And then this we're going to call the mutation. On that we have what is called mutate, and then pass in the message, the one that we want to send to the API as that. And then we have to empty set message as empty string. Perfect. So we are done with the main logics. What has left is the form. So here I'm going to use React fragment as that and provide the first div. And for the first div, I'm going to provide a class name as header. I'll provide the CSS for you, and then h1, and then p tag here. And the class name here is called description. And then we are going to display the messages. So here as a div by providing a class name, and then inside we're going to have one more div, and this is where we are going to loop through the conversations in the use state here as that. So here my JSX as that, and then bring in the conversations.map. Then in here I'm going to provide callback function, and then I'm going to return JSX by providing a div as that. And then in the callback we have the entry and then the index. For the class name for this is going to be dynamic class name by providing what is called JSX. So here as object backtick, and then the message space, and then provide the $ curly braces. On the entry we have what is called row, meaning that we have a row as a class, meaning message and the row. So it means that if your row is a user, you're going to use a different color. Otherwise, we're going to use a different color for the AI. Remember, the row can be assistant or user. So here, let's provide the key as entry. So let's use the index instead as that. All right. So in the div here, we're going to provide strong tag. And this is where we are going to show either you or the AI or the user. All right. So here as entry dot row. If it is equal to user, then we will say that you, otherwise we will say AI. And then lastly, the actual content as entry dot content. So let's see what we have. Where I forgot to run the application, make sure to save, or unless we save it, let's require the component here in the app.js, and then I'm going to return the chat here as that. Now let me remove this, likewise this, and now here to run, make use of npm run dev. All right, it is running on this port. Copy that and then replace with this, and this is what we have. As you can see, AI says that how can I assist you today, because you don't have the CSS. So I'm going to place the file of CSS inside the component, and definitely I'll provide the CSS for you, which is this. And then in the chat here, instead of using, I think I don't have the CSS, so let me require import and then chatbot.css, and let's see, and we have something like this. So let me remove the default styling, and that is the index here from the main. From the main here, we are using this CSS. Alright, I think our CSS is messing up. Here's supposed to be chat container. Yeah, this one. And then we have it as that. And then for the content, I think it is below, not inside the strong tag here, supposed to be outside here. Well, don't worry about the CSS. We can fix it as we move on. The next step is that I want to show is typing. So here I'm going to have this as is typing. In case we have one, we are going to show this div. Let me have some spacing here, and then provide a class name as message assistant, and then provide h1, and I will say AI, and then strong tag by saying that AI is typing. Alright, we are done with that. The next step is going to be the actual input. So here I will say div, and then provide class name called input area, and then the actual input field with a type of text, and then provide placeholder. I will say that enter message, and then the value can be found in the state as message, and then the onChange handler, I will say by passing in a callback function, we have access to the event as set message, then provide the event.target.value. And then let's have a button for submitting. So here I will say that I'm going to provide some condition, but before that I will say send message. And then on the button, on click, then I'll pass in the handle message, which is this. Now let's try out. Let me open the console to make sure that everything will be fine. And then I will say hi. We have AI is typing, but we got cause error. So it means that we have to allow our backend to be accessed by our front-end application. So make sure to install a package called cause. So at the backend, shut down and install cause package. And then let's configure our server by bringing in cause here. And then here I'm going to have what is called cause options, which is equal to object by providing origin. So here we're going to provide the front-end application that we want it to access our backend. So here I'm going to use this URL. In production, make sure to use the right URL. Sometimes the port will be 73 here, supposed to be array as that. And then app.use, then cause, then provide the cause options as that. Now let's try again. Refresh. If I say hi, well, unless I run the server, yeah, it is not running. Let me try again. Well, we still have the cause error. The issue here is remove the // and now it works. Let's try again. Hi. We got different error, which means that our cause issue has been solved. So to be able to know more about the response, we are going to log the mutation. So down here, if I log the mutation, let's see the error. Refresh. If I say hi, now let's open that. On the error, we have the response as error generating response from the OpenAI. Well, the issue here is that for the sent message, we are not passing in the message that we want to send to our backend. So pass in here as message, and then as a second argument, object, and then the message. Remember, we have the message as we passed into the mutation here, which is the current message. So now it will work. If I say hi, all right, now it worked, and we got hello, how can I assist you today? If you check the response from the API, we got the message as that. Awesome, right? So if I say, what can you do? AI is typing, and then I can help answer questions, provide information, offer suggestions, and others. So it means that it is working. So let's display some loading and error. And what comes back from React query, we have this state. And that is the error, is paused, is pending, is success. If you look at the first one, let me start from scratch, and I will say hi. And now we have the first one is pending, is false. Let me check the first one. We have is pending, is also false. I think my internet is fast. What about this one? Yeah, as you can see here, is pending is true, which means that it is loading, and is success is false. But for the last one, we have is pending, which means is loading is now false, and then is success is true. So we can base on that one to display the messages. All right. So let's do that. Don't worry, when I finish, I'll provide the right CSS for you. The main logic is to make sure that the application is working without wasting much time on the CSS. For this, you can customize it in future. And for this also, to make it more user-friendly, I'm going to provide on key press. And that is, as soon as the user hit enter key on the keyboard, we want to send the message. So here I'm gonna provide what is called on key press, which is this, and then I'm gonna provide the callback function. We have access to the event, and then in case the event.key is equal to enter, supposed to be this, and then in case we have one, then we're gonna call the handle submit message. Perfect. So in here for the button, here I want to show some loading. So here I will say on the mutation, we have what is called is pending. In case it is pending, then we are going to say that loading or sending message. Otherwise, I will say send message. Now let's see. If I say hi, as you can see, we have loading, and now you got the response. Instead of using this text, I'm going to use an icon from React Icons. And then click on the first search results, and then let's go ahead and install the icon in the front end. Paste that. So here you can search for any icon, for example, robot, and you can use any of these icons. So let's see how to use it. It is pretty straightforward as import, then from React Icons /IO5, what we want is called IO send. And then I want one from Font Awesome as FA. What I want here is called Font Awesome Robot. All right. So where we have the AI, which is this, in case the user is AI, I'm going to use the FA robot as self-closing. And then here as AI is typing, I'm going to use the FA robot is typing. Yeah, I think that is it. So let's see. Let me refresh. Okay, my server is not running. And there we go. Let's try again. What is? And we got the results. If I say summarize, AI is typing, and then we got it. Alright guys, so this is how we implement. Alright, this is the end for this project. I'm gonna provide you with the right CSS so you can just copy and paste. The main logic is that it is working. I think for the sending also, which is this, we can use the icon as IO5, that is IO sent icon. Yeah, so let's see, and this is what we have. I'm gonna provide you with the CSS, so I'm gonna paste everything with the CSS being added. I'm gonna have something like this. So if I say hi, as you can see, AI is typing, and if I say what is CSS, as you can see, it worked. I can go ahead and then do some follow-up questions, and I will say summarize in 10 words, and it worked. Alright, so here ends this project. You can customize the CSS to suit your need. Thanks for watching.